My sister exposed to decades old. At the courthouse, turning our family's world upside down with one shocking truth. I never thought I'd be sitting in a courthouse, not for myself, not for anyone else in my family. But last month, there I was, hard wooden benches, buzzing fluorescent lights, and the constant shuffling of papers echoing off the marble walls. My sister, Deborah, 28, sat 2 seats away from me, her arms crossed tight, eyes burning with something I couldn't quite read. The case wasn't even hers. It was about our Uncle Martin's messy business dispute with his ex-partner. Honestly, none of us wanted to be there, but family politics being what they are, Mum insisted we show support. So there we were, Mum on the far end, looking stressed but trying to appear dignified, Deborah practically vibrating with tension, and me in the middle trying to keep the peace, as usual. It was during the recess that things started to spiral. We stepped out into the hallway, where the smell of burnt coffee and cheap hand sanitizer hung in the air. Deborah suddenly snapped at Mum. "You really think you can just sit here like nothing ever happened?" Deborah's voice cut through the chatter of lawyers and clerks. Mum stiffened. "Not now, Deborah, this isn't the place." "Oh, it's exactly the place," Deborah shot back, her voice louder now. People were turning to look. "You've kept your little secret buried for decades, but not anymore, not while we're sitting in a courthouse where the truth is supposed to matter." My stomach dropped. I glanced around nervously, praying she wouldn't air whatever dirty laundry she was hinting at in front of random strangers. "Deb, calm down," I whispered, grabbing her arm, but she pulled away. Our cousin Daniel, who had tagged along for moral support, frowned. "What secret? What's going on?" Deborah's eyes were blazing, and her voice shook, but not from weakness. She was trembling with anger that had clearly been simmering for years. "Mom never told you, did she? About why Dad really left? About what she did?" Mom's face went pale, like all the blood drained out of her at once. She whispered, "Stop." But Deborah didn't. She turned to Daniel, to me, to everyone in earshot, and practically shouted. "Dad didn't just leave because he couldn't handle us. He left because Mom had him, with Uncle Martin's business partner. And she's been pretending all these years that he was the bad guy." The hallway went dead silent. Even the clerk who was carrying a stack of files for his mid-step. I felt like the air was sucked out of the room. My chest tightened, and I couldn't even process what she had just said. Mom covered her mouth with her hand, and for the first time in my life, I saw tears in her eyes. "Deborah, that's enough." Mom hissed, but Deborah just glared at her, her voice breaking. "You ruined everything and then blamed Dad. Do you know how long I've carried that, how long I've hated you for lying to us?" And just like that, the courthouse became our battlefield. The hallway buzz returned slowly, like people couldn't decide whether to mind their business or hang around for the drama. Daniel's jaw literally dropped, and he stammered, "Wait, what, Aunt Lisa, is that true?" Mom shook her head, clutching her purse like it was a shield. "This isn't the time or place to read." "That's not a denial," Deborah snapped. I felt heat crawling up my neck. This was spiraling so fast. "Deb, please," I begged, lowering my voice. "You don't want to do this here. Let's step outside." But Deborah wasn't backing down. She had this stubborn fire in her eyes, the same one she had since we were kids, when she wouldn't let go of a fight. "No, I've swallowed this life for years, but I'm done pretending." Daniel looked completely lost, his hands raised like he was refereeing a fight he never signed up for. "So Uncle Martin's partner, you mean Paul?" The name hit Mom like a punch. Her lips trembled, and she couldn't look any of us in the eye. Deborah let out a bitter laugh, the kind that's more pain than humour. "Yeah, Paul, remember how Dad suddenly packed up and left when I was 10? Everyone said he couldn't handle the pressure of running the business, that he was selfish. That's what Mom told us, but the truth is, she cheated on him with Paul, and when Dad found out, he walked. Mom wrote history, so we'd hate him instead of her." I swear my knees almost gave out. That can't be true," I whispered, looking at Mom. "Tell me she's lying." But Mom just looked away, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. That silence said more than words ever could. The courthouse door opened, and Uncle Martin himself stepped into the hallway, his face tightening instantly at the tension. "What's going on out here?" Deborah turned on him, her anger now blazing in a new direction. "Why didn't you ever say anything? You knew. You've been sitting on this secret just like Mom." Martin rubbed the back of his neck, clearly uncomfortable. "Deborah, this isn't the place here." "Stop saying that," she screamed. "All of you keep saying that, like there's ever going to be right time to talk about how Mom blew up our family and let Dad be painted as a villain." By now, the bailiff was eyeing us suspiciously, clearly debating whether to intervene. People were whispering, stealing glances. I wanted the ground to swallow me whole. I finally snapped, grabbing Deborah by the shoulders. "Enough, you've made your point, but do you even care what this is doing to me, to Daniel, to everyone else standing here? You're not just punishing Mom, you're burning all of us down with her." Her face softened for a second, just a second, but then hardened again. "You don't get it. I've lived with this poison for almost 20 years. I can't carry it anymore." And then she said the words that changed everything. If Dad hadn't left, I wouldn't have been the one who found him the night he tried to end it. The hallway went silent again, but this time it wasn't shock, it was devastation. My chest tightened so hard it hurt. None of us had known that. Not even me. I swear the words echoed down the marble hallway like gunshots. The night he tried to end it. Daniel gasped. Mom stumbled back against the wall, clutching her chest. I just froze, my brain refusing to process what Deborah had just admitted. "You what?" I croaked. My throat felt dry, like I hadn't swallowed in hours. Deborah's face was flushed, her eyes wet but defiant. I was 11. He called me from the garage, like he wanted me to find him. I didn't understand what was happening at first, why the car was running, why the air smelled so bad. I thought he was sick. I screamed until the neighbour came and pulled him out. He never looked at me the same again after that, and you know why? Because he thought he didn't matter, because of you. She pointed at Mom, her hand shaking. Mom's legs gave out, and she slid onto the bench, sobbing uncontrollably. "Deborah, I didn't know you saw that. He never told me." "Well, of course he didn't," Deborah snapped, her voice breaking. "Why would he? You were the reason he was broken in the first place." The words landed like knives. I felt torn in two. Part of me wanted to defend Mom. Part of me couldn't deny that Deborah's fury had the weight of truth behind it. Uncle Martin stepped forward, his face pale. "Deb, listen, Paul, and your mum." "Don't." Deborah cut him off, her voice raw. "Don't you dare try to explain it. You all knew. You all let me and my brother grow up thinking Dad was weak, selfish. I hated him for years. and all that time, it was her lie that destroyed him. I finally found my voice. Why didn't you tell me all these years? Deb, why didn't you say something? She looked at me, and for once her anger melted into something softer grief, maybe. Because I thought you were better off not knowing. I thought carrying it alone was easier than wrecking your image of Mom. My stomach twisted. I felt sick. So you carried a secret like that for almost 20 years. Do you have any idea how heavy that is? Deborah laughed bitterly. Yeah, I know, that's the point. I've been carrying it since I was 11, and I'm done. By now, people had stopped pretending they weren't watching. Even the bailiff edged closer, like you might step, and if things escalated again. Mom looked up at Deborah with red, swollen eyes. I made mistakes, God knows I made mistakes, but I love you. I still love you. Deborah's lip trembled, but she shook her head. Love doesn't erase what you did. For the first time in my life, I felt like our family was standing on the edge of a cliff. One wrong word, one more truth, and we'd fall into something we couldn't climb back out of. And then, just as the courtroom doors opened again and people began filing back inside, Deborah muttered, if Dad hadn't left, maybe he'd still be alive today. The words hit like a thunderclap, because in that instant I realised something none of us had ever admitted out loud before. Dad hadn't just left. He'd never made it back. The moment Deborah said to maybe he'd still be alive today, everything inside me went cold. I'd always avoided the details around Dad's death. We were told it was an accident, that he'd fallen asleep at the wheel late at night. No one in the family ever questioned it out loud. But now, the way Deborah said it, it didn't sound like an accident at all. Wait, I whispered, barely able to breathe. Are you saying Dad's death wasn't what we were told? Deborah's eyes locked on mine, her jaw tight. She didn't answer right away, which was an answer in itself. Mom let out a guttural sob, shaking her head violently. No, don't do this here. Don't rewrite history. Deborah, he couldn't handle the separation. Yes, but that doesn't mean... Deborah's voice rose, trembling with fury. Stop lying. Mum, he wasn't some careless driver. He wasn't tired from work. He drove himself into that tree because he couldn't live with what you did to him. Gasps rippled through the hallway. Daniel actually covered his mouth like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Uncle Martin muttered, Jesus Christ, under his breath. The bailiff finally stepped forward. Ma'am, you need to lower your voice. If this continues, I'll have to ask you all to leave. But Deborah didn't stop. She was too far gone. Years of silence and bitterness spilling out like a dam had broken. Do you know what it's like, she shouted, to see your father broken, then watch him slowly give up, and then spend your whole life being told he was weak when the truth is he was destroyed by betrayal? I grabbed her wrist, desperate now. Deborah, please, we're in a courthouse. For God's sake, do you want to get thrown out? Her eyes softened for a moment as she looked at me, but then hardened again as they flicked back to Mom. Thrown out? No. I want her to finally face what she did. I want her to stop pretending. At that moment, the clerk appeared in the doorway and called, Case of Martin Peterson versus Paul Green, now resuming. The irony wasn't lost on me. Paul, the very man at the centre of all this, was literally on the docket. Deborah's hands clenched into fists. Mom refused to meet anyone's eyes. Uncle Martin looked like he wanted to crawl into a hole. We filed back inside, but the tension clung to us like smoke. I sat next to Deborah, who was still vibrating with rage. Mom sat on the opposite bench, her shoulders shaking. The judge turned in about motions and evidence, but none of us were listening. I kept glancing at Deborah, terrified she'd erupt again. And then it happened when Paul finally walked into the room. Deborah stiffened, her nails digging into the bench. Under her breath, she whispered, There he is, the man who ruined everything. I leaned toward her quickly. Please don't make a scene. But her eyes never left Paul, and I knew whatever storm had started in that hallway wasn't over. It was only just beginning. Paul Green strode into the courtroom, confident, smug even, like he owned the place. I could feel Deborah's tension ripple through the bench beside me. Her fingers were tied around the edge of the seat, knuckles white, eyes locked on him like a predator sizing up its prey. You're not even supposed to be here, she hissed under her breath. I swallowed hard, trying to stay calm. Deb, don't just sit it. But she wasn't listening. When the judge called the case to order, she stood abruptly, startling everyone. Excuse me, Your Honour, she shouted. Heads turned. Whispers spread like wildfire through the courtroom. The judge blinked, clearly unprepared for this. Ma'am, please sit down. This is not the place for personal grievances. Deborah's eyes were blazing. No, it is the place. I've carried this for 20 years, and today, in front of everyone, you're going to hear the truth. Mum gasped audibly, and I leaned over to her. Deb, please. Deborah ignored me. She turned to Paul, who had frozen mid-step, his smug expression faltering. You think you can walk around like nothing happened? Like you didn't destroy my family? Do you even remember how that ended up? Do you know what you did to him? Paul's mouth opened, but no words came out. He looked at the judge, clearly hoping for some intervention. The bailiff shifted uneasily. I do it, Deborah continued, her voice trembling but fierce. You and Mom. Your little secret. That shattered Dad. That broke him from the inside out. That left him gone. And you never even apologised. Whispers grew louder. Then I leaned over to me, eyes wide. Is she seriously doing this? I shook my head, too stunned to answer. Paul finally muttered, Deborah, that's not her. Not what? She snapped. Not true. You destroyed him. You destroyed all of us. She turned sharply to the judge. Your Honour, I demand this be acknowledged. Everyone deserves to know how my father really died, and why our family fell apart. He didn't leave because he was weak, he left because your client Paul helped ruin him. The courtroom erupted. Gasps, murmurs, phones clicking to record, papers shuffling. Mom buried her face in her hands, shaking uncontrollably. Uncle Martin's face went red as a tomato. I reached for Deborah, terrified she'd keep going. Deb, stop, you can't. She looked at me with a flicker of vulnerability. I have to, she whispered. Then louder, I've carried this for too long, and it ends now. The judge banged the gavel, but even that couldn't quiet the room. Paul sat down, defeated, glaring at her, realising the he'd helped create was now laid bare for everyone to see. I could see the weight lift slightly off Deborah's shoulders, though her hands still trembled. Mom was sobbing silently, the shame and guilt painted across her face. In that moment, I realized something I'd never seen Deborah this alive, this raw. She was finally confronting the truth, even if it broke everything around her. And I knew one thing for certain: nothing would ever be the same again. After Deborah's outburst, the courtroom was a mess of whispers, flashing phones, and stunned faces. The judge tried to regain control, banging the gavel repeatedly, but the energy in the room had shifted. Our family had been exposed, our secrets laid bare, and nothing could put the toothpaste back in the tube. Mom didn't even try to stand. She sat on the bench, her face buried in her hands, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Uncle Martin hovered nearby, looking like he wanted to disappear. Daniel just kept muttering, I can't believe this, while glancing nervously at Deborah. I finally managed to get Deborah out of the courtroom. She followed me, her face pale, lips trembling, eyes still wide with adrenaline. Once we were in the empty hallway, away from the whisperers and shocked glares, she collapsed against the wall. I can't believe I just did that, she said quietly, almost to herself. He did the right thing, I said, though my voice sounded shakier than I wanted. It was eating you alive. You can't live with a secret like that forever. Deborah shook her head. It's not just the secret. It's everything, the lies, the way Mom rewrote history, the way we all hated Dad for something that wasn't his fault. I've carried that for 20 years. And now I don't know if she can ever forgive me. I put a hand on her shoulder. Mom's grieving, Deb. She knows she messed up, but seeing you stand up, she'll get it. Eventually. Meanwhile, Mom had pulled herself together enough to follow us into the hallway. Her eyes were red, but she tried to smile weakly. Deborah, she began, voice shaking. I'm so sorry. I thought I was protecting you. I never imagined it would hurt anyone like this, especially Dad. Deborah looked at her, anger and hurt still visible, but there was also a flicker of understanding. I know, Mom. I know you didn't mean to. I just needed the truth, and it had to come out, somehow. Daniel, who had finally gathered the courage to join us, muttered, This changes everything, but maybe it's for the best. We can't keep living like this. For a long moment, none of us spoke. The courthouse felt huge and hollow, echoing with the ghosts of our family's past mistakes. Then Deborah exhaled, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. I guess this is the start of cleaning up the mess, she said, almost to herself. Mom nodded, tears still streaming, and we all understood the gravity of what had happened. Our family had been shaken to its core, but for the first time, we were facing the truth together. As we left the courthouse, the sun was setting, casting golden light over the stone steps. It felt symbolic somehow, like even after the darkest moments, there's still a chance for clarity, for healing, and maybe, just maybe, for forgiveness. I looked at Deborah walking beside me, her face still pale but calmer than it had been. Val, she'd carried for so long, was finally out in the open. And I knew, no matter how messy or painful the aftermath would be, this was the moment our family had to start reckoning with reality. Over the next few weeks, the fallout from the courthouse revelation settled into a tense, fragile normal. Family dinners became quiet, cautious affairs. Mom didn't try to defect or rewrite history anymore, she simply listened and admitted when she'd been wrong. Deborah, though still guarded, seemed lighter, like the burden she'd carried for decades had finally been lifted. Daniel and I acted as informal mediators, gently nudging conversations toward understanding rather than blame. It was awkward at first, silences stretching for minutes, interrupted only by the clink of cutlery or the hum of the refrigerator, but slowly, cracks of reconciliation began to appear. One afternoon, I found Deborah sitting on the porch swing, staring at the fading sunlight. I sat beside her, not saying anything at first. She finally sighed, her shoulders slumping. I feel empty, she admitted quietly, but also like I gained something by telling the truth. You gained clarity, I said softly. And honesty, that's worth a lot, even if it hurts. She laughed bitterly. Worth it, maybe, but I also destroyed what little piece Mom and I had left. She's broken, and I don't know if she'll ever fully forgive me. I shook my head. Mom forgives in her own way, she loves you, and now, at least, she's seeing the truth the way you've lived with it all these years, that counts for something. Deborah leaned back, eyes glimmering with unshed tears. I never thought facing the truth could feel like freedom. Meanwhile, Mom had started therapy, something she'd resisted for years, admitting finally that she needed help untangling the web of lies she'd created. Deborah supported her cautiously, and even Daniel got involved, helping Mom set up appointments and checking in on her mental health. The hardest part for all of us was rebuilding trust, especially with each other. But step by step, conversations became easier. We laughed again, sometimes nervously, sometimes fully, as old family memories surfaced, and we shared stories without the shadow of lies looming over them. One evening, Deborah called a family meeting on the porch, the sunset painting the sky in deep oranges and purples. She looked at each of us, her expression sober but calm. I don't expect everything to be perfect, she said, and I don't expect us to forget the past. But I want us to move forward without secrets, without. We can't change what happened, but we can choose how we live now. Mom nodded, tears sliding silently down her cheeks, and whispered, I'm ready, I want to try. I looked at Daniel, at Deborah, at Mom, and realised that for the first time in years, there was a sense of hope in our family, a fragile, cautious hope, but real. The truth had torn us apart, yes, but it had also given us a chance to rebuild from the rubble. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Deborah reached for my hand. We survived it, she said quietly. And now maybe we can finally be a family again. For the first time in a long time, I believed her.